Yo, I'm Bob. Totally blind since birth into Marvel, talking about X-Men the Animated Series, episodes 9 and 10. The Cure and Come the Apocalypse. The Cure premiered on February 20th in 1993, and Come the Apocalypse premiered on February 27th in 1993. These two premiered before The Unstoppable Juggernaut, so they aired out of chronological order. That's actually how I would see them as well. I saw Come the Apocalypse before The Cure when I bought Come the Apocalypse from Toys R Us. My family didn't realize the VHS tapes were numbered. I wonder if the numbers were on the sides or maybe the bottoms of the boxes in smaller print. I don't know. Everybody in my family could see. We were probably in such a mad rush that particular Friday morning in early June of 1994. But yeah, I mean, I'd see the episodes backwards. But I did enjoy them immensely once I saw them as they were meant to be seen chronologically. And I think that was because of Apocalypse, voiced by John Colicos, and I think it was because of the big question. If you have mutant powers, do you view them as a blessing or a curse? And right away when the Cure opens, we get to meet Angel, Warren Worthington, and this guy has a bit of a difficulty hiding his mutant powers, hiding his wings. And he's got a girlfriend and they're in the chalet, but right away he wants to take her home because he's not sure how she would react if she were to see his wings. I mean, is she going to call him a freak? Is she going to be like, yeah, I think I got other stuff to do, that kind of thing. So he's very uncomfortable with being a mutant, and he, I believe, views it as more of a curse, as more of a hindrance to his life. But right away, Cable shows up as well. He's wanting to put the kibosh on Dr. Adler, so he needs to figure out where the heck that guy is. He didn't get too much information at Genosha, so here he is bugging Warren. I love that fight scene at the beginning of the episode. And whether he wants it or not, Warren's wings are exposed to his girlfriend, and I think she actually nicks him. I'm still going by ear quite a lot when it comes to these episodes because there aren't very in-depth descriptions on wiki articles. There is no audio description track for these shows, these older shows. So yeah, I think she probably nicks him with the laser gun there. So I would imagine they parted ways. I don't know. Hopefully they work things out. But yeah, this guy is not faring too well. He's not having a very good day. I love the scene where Professor Xavier's talking to Moira McTaggart there at Muir Island there in Scotland. And he's finally getting ready to tell his students about the Cure. Of course, we get that really cool scene with Xavier trying to establish a psychic link with Dr. Adler. We hear that name a lot in this episode, by the way. And then you have Apocalypse blocking him there. So that was an interesting scene. I wonder if you actually saw Apocalypse full-bodied here, if he was just kind of a silhouette, a shadow. I'm not sure if we actually see him in this episode or if he's just kind of in the shadows for the most part. I would imagine he probably shows up toward the end of the episode if we don't see him right away. I liked when Xavier is talking to Moira and she calls this treatment a cure, and he's like, no, don't say cure, Moira. Being a mutant isn't a disease, it's something you're born with. And I mean, there are spoilers ahead, so I would advise pausing the video if you haven't seen too much of X-Men. Do it now. I'm warning you. Anyway, when Xavier's talking about how mutants, they have gifts and it's should be viewed as normal, Moira sounds a bit sad. She sounds a bit unsure of that when she says not all mutants would agree with you. And I mean, I retcon this as soon as I watched Proteus, because Moira, of course, she has a son she's not really wanting to talk about. And so I think she also is very interested in this cure during this episode. So that's going on. You've got Gambit, who's made a mysterious return in this episode. We don't know where he was during the events of the Unstoppable Juggernaut. Maybe he was staying behind doing stuff at the mansion, but he's back, and he and Wolverine are at odds. I would imagine they're both quite stressed because no one knows where Xavier is until Jubilee interrupts them before they get into a fight. And yeah, they find out about the cure, and Rogue, I don't think I really thought about her ability until I saw this episode. I'd only seen Deadly Reunions once, and I did know she could absorb people's powers, being 10 at the time. I really didn't think about what that would mean for Rogue in terms of having a relationship with anybody. She can't kiss. She can't really touch anyone without hurting them. And I would imagine this is something that she really became interested in once Xavier mentioned that cure. And when I got older, I thought about that a lot. There were people that would come up to me and pray over my disability as if it was some kind of a disease and needed to be cured as well. And so, whenever I would watch this episode in high school or college, I thought, maybe if there was some kind of tech that could take away my complete blindness, would I go for it? I tend to think maybe. I don't know. That's still something I puzzle over. But yeah, Rogue is jumping at the chance to head to Muir Island. We get to see that flashback of Rogue as a teenager, and we get to see Cody and how her powers were made manifest. Well, if you've watched Night of the Sentinels before The Cure, she tells us about it in that one. But we actually get to see it here, and I think that is it's a really heartbreaking scene. Realizing that she can't be with anybody, she can't touch anyone, and I really like her journey in this episode. We get to see Pyro and Avalanche on Muir Island. They're thinking about sticking it to Mystique. I guess they were all in Slave Island. I didn't know that when I was considerably younger, but here they are in episode 9, and things really start happening quickly once Rogue gets to Muir Island. I like seeing Cable. He's just there to take out Adler. He's trying to make the world safer for mutants. Like I said in the last video, this must be one of his early time travel and adventures, and maybe he's a bit more reckless here. I would think that he's probably done some research with Greymalkin, or whatever his computer's called, and he's thinking maybe Adler doesn't add up too much in the scheme of things. So, I don't know. He's just not really thinking straight. You've got the other X-Men showing up. You've got Apocalypse there in the shadows, wanting to have Rogue as one of his first slaves here. I loved seeing Jean and Cyclops and the other X-Men showing up. Really liked seeing Rogue throwing Pyro and Avalanche around before that happens. And we don't really find out that Mystique is the woman who took Rogue in until later, but I like how she does take an interest in Rogue in this episode. Of course, she recognizes Rogue, I'm sure, and she's got her eye on Rogue, I think, throughout this episode as well as the next. So everybody is trying to find Dr. Adler, take out Dr. Adler, get Dr. Adler to cure them, and we hear that name a lot in this episode. Do not play a Dr. Adler drinking game, because you'll hear Rogue yelling it a few times. Cable says it. I think we even hear it a few times in the next episode too. I wonder if anybody's ever counted the number of times the name Adler is spoken in this episode as well as the next. Love the fight with the X-Men and Cable at the end of the episode. Rogue, I think, comes to a realization that even though it's tough to have her powers, she can do a lot of good with them. She saved Jean's life at the end of the episode. Of course, I tend to wonder why Cable didn't. I wonder if he knows at this point about his parentage. I have no idea if or when that happens. Well, of course, he knows about Jean and Cyclops by season 2. I would think he probably does. I don't know though. But the episode, I like how this one ended. Rogue decides to keep her powers, and then there's that really interesting scene at the end where Angel, they pass each other, and he asks her, "How do you fly without wings?" And Rogue's like, "I don't know, I just do." And Rogue is, of course, going to have to explore that even more in season 2 when some interesting memories are unlocked for her. And I love that line because I think that had me asking the same question when I saw that the first time. I was like, yeah, I know, she drains people of their powers, but yeah, how is she able to fly? Because I hadn't seen A Rogue's Tale yet. Come the Apocalypse has so much action in it, and I wish like crazy that there were tracks for these shows, because I'm sure this one really packed a punch. You have Apocalypse, who is preying on the loneliness of quite a few mutants. We get to see Plague again, I believe, from Captive Hearts. She's come to Muir Island for a cure. And Apocalypse is recruiting his horsemen. So he has decided to step out of the shadows, and he takes center stage in Come the Apocalypse. It is one of my favorite episodes. Rogue has already made her decision, but Warren decides to take the quote-unquote cure, and this, of course, turns mutants into slaves for Apocalypse, and quite painfully by the sounds of things. And Mystique is forced to work for Apocalypse whether she wants to or not, because we learned from her toward the end of the episode that she has to help him, otherwise he will end her life. So I don't know if she gets too much enjoyment out of this little business arrangement. So you've got the X-Men still on Muir Island, and Xavier makes an interesting point about mutants that are bitter about their situation. Some of them have turned inward. Some of them have become very angry as to their situation. And Apocalypse is going to use that. He's going to dangle this fake cure in front of them, because that's just who Apocalypse is. He makes quite a few speeches in this episode. I'm sure there is a lot going on as he's doing it, especially when they decide to attack the World Peace Conference. He's recruited all of his horsemen, so he's got famine, pestilence, death, and war, so everybody's there. I think he probably grows in this episode. I wonder what other stuff he does. I don't know if he turns his limbs into various weapons as he does in the comics and X-Men versus Street Fighter and other video games. I just love John Colicos in this episode. I think he nails it as Apocalypse. I think he's probably my favorite vocal performer when it comes to the voices of Apocalypse. Just a fantastic job by John in this episode. It's a very chaotic episode. Things just, they don't stop happening until the episode is over. I think the entire second act is devoted to Rogue attempting to figure out what the heck this cure is. Of course, she finds out it's a fake, and everybody has to go to Stonehenge, where the demons dwell, and stop Apocalypse there. I like that Mystique is in this episode, and she is interacting with Rogue here. I wonder if she is wanting to attempt to put Rogue into the machine yet again, because I mean it's the only way she can get her adopted daughter back. The ending of the episode, I wish we could have seen Apocalypse doing a bit more, but we get this big battle with all of the horsemen. We have Rogue using her powers for good yet again to cause Warren to come to his senses. And you have Apocalypse escaping here. I wonder what he escapes in. I don't imagine it's ship from the episode Obsession. Maybe it's a different vehicle entirely. But yeah, he gets away. I don't know what happens to the other horsemen. I don't think we see them again in the rest of the series. I think Apocalypse uses robots as his horsemen when we see them in Beyond Good and Evil toward the end of season 4. But yeah, I like how this one ends. Rogue lets Archangel know that the evil has been purged from him and it's a part of her now. I always wondered if we'd revisit this. I don't know if that darkness in Warren eventually caused Carol Danvers to awaken in Rogue's mind, because we really don't get to see the repercussions of Rogue taking that evil from Warren. Maybe we do in season 2. Maybe that's what caused Danvers to reawaken deep down in Rogue's mind, in A Rogue's Tale. I don't know, but these 2 episodes, I don't know how many times I've seen them, but they are 2 of my favorites. I wish we could have seen more of Apocalypse in this show. But next time we're going to be taking a look at Days of Future Past, parts 1 and 2, another fantastic duology of episodes. Can't wait to get into that. This video's been long enough. I probably forgot something, in which case maybe we'll talk about it next time. So until then, true believers.